All right. This is where it all started. Modern conspiracy all started here. Or maybe with the people who raised the people who started here. Or maybe with the people who raised it. Maybe it was like all potentials all the time happening. You get pulled in the trance if you try and figure out the rhythm to these weird rhymes. So I'm just picking May 1st. I'm not sure if that was the actual date. The legend of what transpired to get to this point, the Council of Nicaea, was that there was this fateful battle on a bridge. Constantine and about 30 of his soldiers were facing the leader of the enemy and 30 of his, or 50 of his. It was some kind of ungodly number. Maybe it was 90 or 3,000. There was 3,000 enemies, and Constantine and his knights defeated them. Because Constantine, as they were losing, he seen a cross, and it inspired him, and he went on his knees and knelt on his sword, and he prayed to God to give him the strength to win. And then after that, all his knights kind of glowed. They got the glow, and they just started cutting through armor like a hot knife through warm butter. Only a little more gross than that. And supposedly they won because they had God on their side now. They had a new God with new power to bestow upon his new servants. So they set up the Council of Nicaea, take a bunch of books, do some fancy editing, make some changes here or there, and they set up a proxy front for righteous dictatorship through the language of a beautiful story with a lot of tragedy to remind you of the repercussions of your sins, which we will put on our enemies from here on out so that they can carry that cross and we don't have to, because we're doing right. And so that kind of mindset expanded. All right, so that's an idea. That's a societal construct which came from deep within psyche of humanity, found a form, a home in the mind sphere. Here you can see Venus with the moon, Saturn's in Gemini. Pallas Athena is conjunct Venus in the moon, and this is the transformation of society if you follow the process. So it is through the contrast divide which we see it's kind of the loopholes are what make things work in people that know how to use those correctly. That's why our legal system is the way it is. Anyways, this is that process. The emotional front mixed with the wisdom of Pallas Athena, the perception of power, or the power of perception. What is it worth to you? What is it going to benefit your cause by any means necessary? And then with Vesta in a new phase conjunction with Mercury here, it's the The passion of the Vestal Virgin, the purity of the fire, the spirit, the service in the flesh, on the mind, martyring for your God, becoming a faithful child to the divine, the creative. So there's a spirit between Aquarius and Gemini here. And we see all of this. We've got Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter, Juno, all in Aquarius. And there's more than that, I'm sure. There's many ways you can analyze these things. I have not actually analyzed this chart. I just pulled it up. I wanted to look at it. But you can see the Cancer Capricorn axis. I believe Saturn's north node is here at 24 Cancer. I'll have to look at the nodes, but this is very telling. Pluto and Saturn have their nodal axis in Cancer Capricorn. So the evolution of us is tied to our lineage, our ancestral lineage, and what we do with that in society. And this language, this religion of Christianity and Judaism and the later addition of Islam to create a common enemy so that they wouldn't realize that they're mortal enemies in belief, the Jews and the Christians. They can't realize that until the last day when the Zion unfoldment happens and a new Zion is created on earth so that the prophecy can be ritualized into existence, because they created whoever was possessed by the psyche of society and culture, whoever claimed that power and rose in system, set in motion a seed, a germination process, more cultivation from what had previously been. So this is an unfoldment of a process, a story, a mythology here, a season. When you learn these archetypical seasons, then you can see that they're not linear, they're dynamic and they're multivalent, and that there are multiple hops, connections between different archetypes that are moving in different patterns. It's like a dynamic language is necessary in order to make room for all the new perspectives and expressions of psyche that's rising within us always, to give new language for those feelings. So this astrology is the only language you truly can use, or any system like this, which is highly dynamic. But I digress. So there are seasons happening. Okay, this season happening, first day of school, you go through all these different emotions. You feel like the victim, then you feel like the savior, and then you feel like the tyrant, and then you become the martyr. And that's what the world entrains us into, and that's how all our systems are set up in this language, this archetype, this blueprint, which is just a happening in time you can trace and track. But it's a strong one because it's a religious dictate. It's a progeny of psyche handed down to us. So within your blood, within your family, you've got these things. There were many events way, way back, beyond meaning for most of us, unless we're trying to understand who we are and what relation we are playing to the song of life, or what it could be, most importantly. So just quickly, let's look. Neptune is spiritual, spiritual wounding in evolutionary astrology, but it's much more than that. That's a cipher you can use to see it in certain ways, but it is about things. Neptune is the Greek, I think he's Greek or Roman, god of the deep, the unknown, the unseen. I look to Pisces as more of something you can't truly put a name to. So it's gaseous, and sometimes it's form, and sometimes it's, I don't know, it's just ineffable. But we've got this Venusian working the quincunx, so the value, the compromise of our faculties of thinking, because we know others have our best intentions at heart, because we've got a divine father figure looking down at us. As long as we do what we're told, we're going to be taken care of. And so this Venusian opening work of the quincunx is in the spirit realm, deep into the feelings of what we felt, how we're raised, the underpinnings of our psyche, the things which tie us to personas so that we can engage with reality and live that to maturation. To get it out of the system, help it to grow and release it and go on to something else. So this is the seeding of the work that Venus is applying through this Council of Nicaea, through the religious languages. And it's just not, you don't have to be a Christian or a religious person at all to be influenced by this. This is a overarching energy, a more Aquarian, a biopic of a layer which settles through us and out of us and on top of us, and it's a game of relation where the friction is the form. So trying to make sense of the deepest, darkest, and the highest, brightest through learning what it is to feel it, through learning the experiences. So this is setting in motion a big process of learning your value through the compromises, and how for a time the just is just and the wicked is wicked, but after a certain amount of time those things change, because we're trying to lay a static into an ever-flowing dynamic, and the only thing that can corrupt in that is either you or whatever the system, the idol, the icon is. And then you see Neptune squaring Jupiter here in Aquarius, which is trining Venus and Saturn. And it's coming into a balsamic phase conjunction with Uranus, which is the eternal memory. In evolutionary astrology, it's the mental woundings, the loops, the resonance of remembrance. But it isn't just wounds, those things stick out more for us. And we could certainly use Uranus to look at the wounds of a person or a system or a society or anything like that, but we can also look at it for what's the opposite of pain. It's the pleasure. What is the joy? What's the reason? Why do you breathe? This is the eternal breath. It's just not the exhale. It's the inhale. It's the pause. It's the things we don't even know about yet, because we're not at a psychic awareness for that kind of data. So this is the higher octave of Mercury, which is the outer planetary view, which is more Aquarian, more alien, more cold for certain convictions of Saturnian truth, which are traditional. But this is the deepest you can get to primal oneness. So there's that square here, and it's a building square as Neptune reaches 15 degrees, or 16 maybe by the time Probably much longer, because Neptune is a very slow-moving planet, so it's a breaking square. Unless Jupiter goes retrograde, and I don't know if it did. In any case, if I wanted to really analyze the hell out of this, I would do all that, but I have a pretty good intuition. I don't need to dig through all the crap. What I do is I find the signs that actually speak to what I'm feeling, and then later on more data arises. Some people call it Orr's Law. What you seek, you find, essentially. And that's why a lot of people disvalue all life, because they realize it's so immersive, and they are essentially the reason for a shitty life. And it takes a long time to swallow that. I'm still digesting it. But in any case, that's the kind of lesson you learn with this square. This Jupiter Scorpio square, because this is the pain, the dagger is set deep in the soul, deep in the heart, deep where you can't reach it. You can only feel the sting, and when the wind blows a certain way here, information flows, communication. When awareness hits something, it hurts. So you have to either put it down or face it. And this is a facing, but it is a slow breaking square. So it's kind of realizing what that is for you through falling into the fixed what is the word? Entrainment of the ding, of the pain, of the memory, of the idea. So this is why Aquarius is a fixed air sign. They can be driven, stubborn, because they have a knowing of something. They may not understand what it is. They may find the language, and the language keeps changing. And then they may feel a need to hang on to one language, and you refute all the others in a battle for individuality, or a sense of self in the other, or in this place. So it's a slow emergence of realization. It's all for our good, but it's not very pleasant. What else do we got? Nothing there. I just want to see some of the things I might be missing. I mean, you got the Mars square with the moon, Pallas Venus, sextiling Jupiter, Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, where Vesta is one of the asteroids influenced by this archetype, or is a good representation of the energy. And this is the repression, realization of the repression. And squaring Saturn, Saturn is lineage, it's the father, it's the crone, it's the wisdom of the process of being gung-ho and being yang. Yang eventually devolves to yin, as we see with life. So it's like the realization of your own repression is dying through a long process of serving, sacrificing, trying to bring heaven to earth for the right reasons. Any means is necessary. And that's a dangerous game, but it's a mob rules mind, and it's a Capricornian systemized way of being, which we become entrained to through the resonance of relation. Just staring at it stares into you. You become it. You have to be engaged. And to be engaged truly is what makes you realize the value of figuring out who you actually are in the shit show. Are you contributing to it? Are you it, or are you yourself? And that's why you can't really fit into this place. So embrace your weirdness and why you don't fit in. You don't have to get down on yourself because you've been through bad things and you have a dark perspective. You can understand that the light is polarity. I mean, If one exists, the other is there, but it's us that figures out our balance. And it's us who has to do our own digestion. And sometimes we help others as we help ourselves. And sometimes we hurt others as we hurt ourselves. Everything is possible. All right, so quickly right now, just looking at the chart, Moon conjunct Venus. This is beautiful. This is two powerhouse. I mean, the Moon is exalted in Taurus. If you look at Taurus, it's basically the head of Mercury, which is the Sun and the Moon, bringing the square down to reality. Where's Mercury? Here we go. The fixed cross, or the mutable cross, more appropriately, because mutability is actually what makes things function. It's like if you had a movie but it didn't play, you're just staring at a screen. And if the TV doesn't come on, you just have the intention. So it's like you need the three dynamics. So this is kind of an ode to Leo, Cancer, and the cross of mutability in my mind. But I digress. So we got Mercury and Chiron conjunct. This is mental wounds of the self and your individual value. Think of the progression this way. Psyche arises with an idea. It is set in motion, because this is the initial action. Once you're moving, you don't stop. You're in motion. If you jump out a window, you're dead weight until you land and move again, which is Gemini here, where everything you believe or you feel to be right, you set in motion, and the results are here, good and the bad. So sifting through it, do you kill Abel to save Cain? Do you kill Cain to save Abel? How do you bring those two in a coexistence so you're not swindled here, so you can help guide this Saturnian form to perfection, so you can help guide yourself and others up the mountain to break free of the limitations of mind into this ineffable potential and feed that spirit. So think of this energy, the wounded mind, neglecting the self. How does that work when you're trying to figure out where you've compromised yourself and what has made you feel good and what has made you feel bad and why? Was it for another's gain? Were you actually helping them, or were you just keeping them static? And this is a realization without judgment. You don't need to judge. Everything's already happened. This is a digestion of your Libra dynamics, all relation. And you work it through, right here, the wounded self. So bring that psyche and focus on the wounded self. How could you bring the child within to the dream they might have had? What would that dream look like if you had a conversation with your 5-year-old self? What might you change? What would you add? That's just a thematic idea, and then that helps you to inform your compromise, so you're more emotionally sound and you honor yourself first, because that's what it takes in life. You must put your oxygen mask on to help others. If you can't realize the self, but you're trying to find it in all that, well, you're just like everyone else trying to find it in all that. If you want to be different, if you want to help others, if you want to set the tone of your life for you and your ancestors and all the people you care about, and then share that with others, this is where you can find that kind of emotional perspective, a balanced perspective, where the contrast of the light and the dark, the ignorance and the knowledge, and how ignorance isn't all bad and knowledge isn't all good, and vice versa. How you can bring that spirit in alignment with your compromise, not compromising yourself unless it's for your highest value, because then it's for another's highest value. at the very least, you show as a expression of what is possible. At the very best, you take care of yourself and you share that benefit with others through your actions, your deeds. Taurus is the polarity to Scorpio, which is the most interpersonal, the deepest interpersonal sign here, which is the other people's power, what you give, what is taken, how you help and heal and hurt and harm and all of that. The work of Gemini here. So in that way, doing good for you is going to do good for others, so long as you realize you're not an island unto yourself. We all gotta live. So golden rule is a good baseline. So when you're studying these charts and the transits, just kind of look back. I mean, we could look here. It influences Mars still, Pluto. So there's something here, and then you look at Pisces, 29 anaretic degree Neptune, how that's spirited into Aries, and how Aries is spirited into Taurus, how Taurus spirited into Gemini, Gemini spirits into Cancer, etc. Just like your organs. One organ operates here. It upflows energy to the next organ. If this one's out of balance, this organ could show symptoms, issues, even if this one doesn't. So if you want to heal a problem area, you look to the first hop. You go down river to the next hop and see how is that organ working? How is that relation working? How is this process for you? Then you just keep doing that, and that's how you can think of astrology, or anything for that matter, because it's all psyche is there waiting to be realized to help you cultivate your beliefs, and that's when your spirit is growing. When your beliefs are limited to paradigm, then you're feeding into something else. It's a parasitic symbiosis where you're given some kind of convenience, comfort, which turns into cancer or contraction. And it's a natural process. I mean, if you're there, don't worry about it. Just try and figure out, okay, I'm in this place. How do I get back to where I have been? Because it's always ebbing and flowing. It's just as time moves on, we get more burnt out with that, and we fall more into the hermetics of this veg state, and that is one of the demons which feeds upon us, gluttony and all that kind of stuff. Idle minds creates anxiety. You've got to be able to use the mind in productive ways, I feel. Alright, so I don't know, this is just a quick talk video astrological thing, so hopefully it was interesting for you and helpful. If not, that's alright. Alright, take care.